financial opportunities for our small businesses. It's been a very busy year for us at the EDA in working with our partners in the county and devising ways to help support our small businesses within the county through various financing opportunities. So been very fortunate to help support that initiative, and to date we've helped a lot of the small businesses as we move towards recovery into 2021. So excited to be here and really excited for this partnership with George Mason. It's the premier university in our region, and the number one thing that we get from companies that we interface with at the EDA is the need for qualified talent. And I think sponsoring events like this and working in close accordance with your School of Business will help further that mission, both for the companies that are here and the relationships that we have with the university. So excited to partner on this opportunity and looking forward for many more types of opportunities like this to come.
I think I'm next.
Yes, Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy's
I'll take it away. Thanks. Hi, my name is Jeremy Plotnick. I'm the Director of Minor Programs at the George Mason University School of Business. And we're happy to announce that in the fall semester, we'll be launching our newest minor, which will be the Real Estate Entrepreneurship minor. So if you're a sophomore now or junior and you're interested in this area, the minor's for you. It's a standard business minor, 15 credits, divided into 3 different tracks. If you have a particular focus area, we have a real estate development track, an entrepreneurship track, and an urban planning track. And the minor allows you to take courses in marketing, finance, management, geoinformation systems, civil engineering, a wide range from across Mason. That'll give you a good breadth of knowledge to prepare you for a career in this field. So right now, it's still in development, but the website will go live in April. If you wanted to take a look at on that channel. If not, you can reach out to me or Eric Maribojak, who will be the moderator, and we can provide you more information between now and April. Okay, so we look forward to seeing you in the minor. Thank you. I turn it over to Eric now.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. And we are excited to welcome the minor and welcome the students who are going to be joining us come fall of 2021. So welcome, students, and thank you for tuning in and learning more about careers in real estate and finance. We have a very esteemed panel today from a broad range of industries that can give you an idea of possible careers that you may have or that you can think about while you're here at George Mason University. So I'll go through a quick introduction, really just a list of the people we have on the panel today, and then I will turn it over to them for our first round of questions. So today we welcome Paige Lawson. She's the Underwriting Senior Associate for Targeted Affordable Housing at Freddie Mac. We have Omar Shah, a Senior Associate and Data Scientist at KPMG. We have David Newman today, the Managing Director of Trammell Crow. John Scott, the CEO of Scott Long Construction. Colleen Weavedow, a partner at Baker Tilly. Brian McLaughlin, the President and CEO of Enterprise Community Development. Jason McDonough, the Director for Commercial Real Estate Lending at John Marshall Bank. And finally, we have Mike Strasberg, the Vice President for Finance, New Homes and Land at Van Meter Homes. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. And I thought we'd start by maybe a round of questions. And as questions come in from the students, as Carrie mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I will pick questions as we go through the afternoon. So I guess my first question for the panel, I guess, is maybe if you could go further in introducing your role within your company and maybe your company and what it does as well. And maybe a minute or two about your career story, how you got to where you are today. And I think our students would be interested in hearing about that. So let's start with Mike Strasberg.
Of course. No, I appreciate it, Eric, and thanks everyone for having me. Appreciate being part of this group. So as you mentioned, my name is Mike Strasberg with Van Meter, Vice President of Finance. So my background, graduated from the University of Delaware, and my background's in accounting. I think it's pretty fascinating to see a couple, Baker Tilly, KPMG. I was with Ernst & Young, EY, for just under 10 years. And so I left as a third-year senior manager and ultimately came to Van Meter as the Vice President of Finance. And I've been here for the last 4 years. And so it's definitely something where, as people are having the conversations of, seeing everyone's career paths, it can go many different ways, right? Accounting's my underlying background, but have made the shift to more finance and, with accounting and, good to see you, Jason, work with Jason McDonough on the financing side. But yeah, it's interesting to see that path as everyone talks through. Accounting can mean many things. I was a true accountant. I was in the audit practice, and I've shifted to now being more on the operational side. At Van Meter, we are a fully integrated real estate company. We have apartments, as many of you know. We have home building, which is the group that I oversee on the finance side, and but we also do real estate development, land acquisition, a little bit of everything. We have a manufacturing company out in Winchester. So, to be able to make the shift through accounting, and as we're talking career paths, I always had a focus on real estate, dealt with real estate, hospitality, and construction while I was at Ernst & Young. But that path has transitioned me ultimately to where I am today. And it'll be interesting. I saw some, previous questions, and I'm sure there'll be many other questions as people ask them, but it'd be very interesting to hear like how that path works and how it's ultimately relevant. But Van Meter's a phenomenal company when I made the change, and yeah, I'm looking forward to talking more about it as questions come in.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Excellent. So Jason McDonough, Executive Vice President, Director of Commercial Real Estate Lending here at John Marshall Bank. John Marshall Bank is a local community bank. We're approaching $2 billion in assets, headquartered in Reston. We've got 8 locations in Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland, been in existence for over 12 years. I oversee our commercial real estate lending efforts across the entire bank. That's all of our regions. We have a small centralized real estate group here at our headquarter office, and we have a decentralized component through our real estate lenders out in our regions that are doing business. A little bit about my story. I've been in banking for 15 years. I started in 2006. I was an undergraduate major of psychology in Virginia Tech. It was the furthest thing from finance, but I understood people, and I needed a job coming out of college. So I entered a retail management trainee program for a bank in 2006. I started behind the teller line. I moved to the customer service representative desk. I moved to the assistant manager position on the retail side. I moved to the management position on the retail side. 2008, I moved over to commercial credit, learned the underwriting side, went to the BBA School of Bank Management, continued to expand and enhance my experience and knowledge of the banking industry, continued to move forward, moved over to the real estate desk in 2010. Joined the George Mason University Masters of Real Estate Development program in 2012, graduated that in 2015, became a loan officer, onward and upward and throughout the ranks as an officer at the bank that I was with at that time. And over the years, just continued to expand on my passion for real estate. So coming out of college, did not know that real estate was the direction I was heading, but I'd say real estate certainly found me, and have had an opportunity to meet a number of wonderful people in this industry, in this local market, like Eric and Mike and a number of you on the call. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Certainly one of our successes in terms of our alumni here at George Mason. So turn it over to Brian.
Hi everyone. I'm Brian McLaughlin. I'm President and CEO of Enterprise Community Development. We're a nonprofit affordable housing developer headquartered in this region. We're one of the big players in the market. We're about a $1.3 billion valuation, 430 employees, big integrated, vertically integrated company, working on a lot of development. Our biggest one probably right now is in Lake Ann, 240 unit new construction, affordable senior building. Look, I kind of went through undergrad. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I ended up almost triple majoring in German, public policy and geology. And I thought I landed the perfect job the summer of my junior year, where I worked in Vienna, Austria, mostly in German, doing forestry policy at a headquarter building there. And I think I realized, I thought my life was going to be in this space. And so I was at Duke for undergrad, and I went to MIT with a focus on environmental planning, and realized at the time, there weren't a lot of jobs available in real estate, 20 something years ago when I was doing this. And there weren't a lot of easy paths to figure out how to get into real estate. I think what you're hearing today is there's so many different tentacles that reach back into the core elements of real estate, which have something to do with math, a little bit of finance, a little bit of the sort of the art of this field, and a little bit of the creativity of this field. So there's a lot here. And I loved eventually moving from environmental planning into really real estate finance and development, and then later went and did a master's at American University in economics. So my focus has been really, figuring out neighborhoods. I like neighborhoods. I like the core question of how do you change something core about a community by thinking about its physical place, and then how does that physical place impact people and their own experiences. So love to be in this space, and this is it's a good time to talk about real estate and the different careers available in real estate.
Thank you, Brian. Brian's work has certainly been, and his company's work has certainly been exemplary, a good example for our industry. Moving on to Colleen.
Good afternoon, Colleen Levido. As Eric mentioned, I'm a partner at Baker Tilly. I went to University of Richmond for my undergrad, but I did receive my MBA from George Mason. I did that at the same time as working full time, and I've been with the same company my entire career. It's unusual at this time, but I think Jason also had a similar story, being the same in the banking industry. But been here, I'm on the audit side. I specialize in commercial real estate, and I look forward to answering any questions everyone has.
Okay, thank you. John?
Yeah, thank you. My career really goes back to growing up in the household of a construction company, my dad's company called Scott Long Construction, which I've been running for the last 20 years or so. But, I didn't want to follow my dad's footsteps, so I got a civil engineering degree from Syracuse and said I want to do design work. But the guest engineer who came in and judged my senior project said it was the worst senior project he's judged in 30 years. And so I realized that I'm not very good at engineering and design, and I begged my dad for a job. And I realized that I love construction because it's a team sport. I love people. I love pulling groups of people together. So we build the commercial projects that you see around town. And I just love to see it come together. On any job, there's 32 different trades, and even in our company, you can get your hands dirty if you want to. You can work in the field, you can work in the office. If you want to crunch numbers, we have estimators and accountants. If you want to do marketing, you want to do sales, you have that. So it's all sorts of things in a construction business for any kind of personality, any kind of skill set. And so we love it. And today we'll do $90 or $100 million worth of work. We're especially known for tough jobs that need a lot of planning. We employ about 70 or 80 people, and our headquarters is in Chantilly.
Thank you, John. For those of you near Mason, if you drive up Braddock Road, most of the churches you see there are John's projects. So really great projects. David?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm a lifelong Northern Virginianer. Grew up in Fairfax County and now sit in the Arlington, Virginia home office of Trammell Crow Company, where I've been for the last 12 months, like many of us. I'm a managing director at Trammell Crow, where I've been for the past 15 years. Before that, I had a life as a recovering consultant, which is what I did right out of undergrad out of the University of Virginia in '99. And I didn't have the great fortune of everyone on this phone that I knew absolutely nothing about commercial real estate. I didn't even really know it existed. I knew there were a lot of agents running around selling homes in Fairfax County and doing well, but I didn't even know commercial real estate was a thing. And so I went back to graduate school in 2004 with the intent of really doing anything but what I had done previously. I didn't want to be on the advisory side of the business. I wanted to move to the principal side. I didn't even know what that meant. Found myself saying, how do I get back to Northern Virginia? How do I get back to the Washington, D.C. area? And all roads led towards a path in commercial real estate. And I was lucky enough to land an internship in 2005 with Trammell Crow Company. We're a large national developer. We have about 35 people in the Georgetown office normally. And landed an internship there, half doing leasing, half doing development. Was hired full-time in 2006, where I've been, and probably one of my few classmates from graduate school where I've been for 15 years now. I manage commercial development projects all around the area, mostly focusing now on the very hot industrial sector. And I've been fortunate enough to lead some of our company's efforts for international expansion. So we bought a multifamily developer in London about a year ago, and we just announced a big expansion for industrial in Europe. So that's been kind of my night job with the time difference. Well, my day job is been building warehouses. So very happy to be here and excited for everyone to learn a little bit about something I knew nothing coming out of undergrad. So just remember, anything is possible.
Thank you, David, and is living testament to the power of internships for those of you out there. Omar?
Hi, hello everyone. How's it going? My name is Omar Shad. I am a GMU alumni. I work at KPMG. Been with KPMG for about 2.5 years. Before that, I was working for a workers' compensation insurance company. Started off as a finance major, an undergrad. Was really passionate about capital markets in general. Found it to be very exciting. Did a couple of data analytics projects, which really intrigued me and got me interested in data analytics. I pursued a master's at Mason as well in data analytics engineering. I then started at KPMG within economic and statistical consulting and worked along valuation services at KPMG. And now I'm within cognitive contract management group within the AI practice at KPMG. And yeah, so started off with finance and made a lot of different turns throughout my career so far. But it's all about discovery. So happy to answer any questions you might have. And yeah, happy to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Omar. And last but not least, Paige.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paige Lawson. I work at Freddie Mac in the multifamily division. I'm an underwriter in the affordable housing group. So we focus on funding low-income housing projects. I actually graduated from Mason in 2015 with a bachelor's in economics. My first real exposure to commercial real estate was an internship. Summer before my senior year, I interned at Fannie Mae, and that's kind of where it all started. And then after graduating in 2015, I joined Freddie Mac in through the college hire program. I started out in asset management and operations in the appraisals group. I did that for about 4.5 years. And then I transitioned January of last year into the affordable housing group where I am now. While at Freddie, I've also been able to get my master's in real estate finance from Georgetown. So yeah, I've been at Freddie for almost 6 years. So I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to answering any questions you all have.
Okay. So why don't we go to first another question for the group. If you think about what are the 1 or 2 most important characteristics you look for either someone you hire or someone that you'd like to work with in your group, maybe we'll do the other way around and start with Paige.
I think great interpersonal skills. I know in both the roles that I've been in at Freddie Mac, whether you're communicating internally or externally, like you're always having to interact with people in this industry. So I think being able to effectively communicate. Another thing would be willingness to learn. There's always something new to learn, especially, working with deals. Every deal is different. Every property is different. So every deal is an opportunity to learn something. So I think it's important to being open to constantly expanding your knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Omar?
Yeah, so I believe that the most important skill set, or the most important skill that is really very encompassing, would be curiosity, being curious. It's a characteristic more than it is a skill, really. And that is projected through starting from an interview, even while on a project, asking the questions that are asked really says whether the person is curious or not. And through curiosity, you end up learning a lot, and you also end up coming up with new ideas. So I think that is very important, especially because 90% of the work that is done in the real world, wherever that is, it's completely unrelated to anything that I was personally exposed to before that. So being curious was really key in order to just keep moving forward and being really good at what I do. So I think curiosity is a very important characteristic for one to have.
Okay, thank you. David, what say you?
I'd say the number one thing is to be passionate about what you do. And there's so many people I talk to on a daily basis who are like, hey, I think I'd like to be in real estate. And Trammell Crow is really good. Hey, did you stop by our multifamily project? You could have toured it. What did you think of it? I didn't have time to do it. Why didn't you? It's open on the weekends, it's available for tours. That's a great idea. That's a conversation I have frequently. And the point of that little anecdote is the passionate person comes and they sit down and they say, man, I went and toured your Sonnet project at 14th and U, and the architecture there is amazing. I went in the 1 bedroom and it was only 500 square feet, but it was designed amazingly. And the bedroom was set up this way and the cabinets were in line and it was real wood. And it's like, those are two differences right there. The passionate person, that's the person we want working for us. He or she spent 1 hour on a Saturday, went and toured and had an amazing interview. The other person might have had the greatest resume ever, but they're not passionate about it. And those are the type of people we want, because we're going to be working hard and we want people who are excited about what they're doing. So that's probably the number one. The number two thing, more specific to real estate development, I would say, is the ability to deal with ambiguity. And that's a very hard concept that's ambiguous and by itself to think about what that means. But real estate development is managing a complex process where I individually don't know more than anyone at the table, but I know more collectively than they do. And I'm managing a process, and there's never a straight line answer to anything. So it's not knowing everything about everything, because that's never going to happen. It's knowing how to manage that process and deal with the ambiguity of it. So these are life skills: being passionate and being able to manage processes and ambiguity that are very applicable to the business.
Well said. I mean, passion and ambiguity actually make it an interesting field to work in, as everybody here would probably attest. So, John?
Yeah, two things also. We just hired a biology major, and he's fantastic. And this is in a world where, we have a bunch of great engineering schools. We have, the number 1 or 2 construction school at Virginia Tech, and we hire a lot of those people. But this biology major is fantastic because he's willing to learn. He's a great communicator. He asks a lot of questions and stays positive. And that's kind of what we are looking for. And the second big thing is accountability. We have firm deadlines for timing. We have firm deadlines for cost, and you got to hit them. And the ability to be accountable, being on time, responsive, returning phone calls, returning emails, and then the ability to hold others accountable and do it in a trusting, welcoming, warming way of, hey, you're late. Come on. We're gonna have to work the weekend to catch up. Let's go. So that team sport thing, the accountability and great interpersonal skills is what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you. Colleen?
Yeah, I could definitely repeat everything that has been said thus far. I think they're all crucial. The two I will add is analytical thinking and multitasking. The reason I say analytical thinking is, I mean, there's never a straight answer. It's never really black and white. There's always gray. And so we always have to continue the thought process and understand fully what's going on. And as far as multitasking, I don't think anyone on this call does one thing and that's it. There are multiple jobs that we are required to focus on. And so for me, when I'm looking, and just to get into like resume review and everything, I'm looking at extracurricular activities. Most people can go to classes, but what else are you doing? What else can you show me that you are involved in the community or work or something to show that if I throw multiple things at you, you can juggle and prioritize correctly?
Okay, good point. Hopefully our students are well skilled at multitasking academic things, right? So that's good. Brian?
Yeah, it's not been helpful to go last or near last because I like all the stuff I had written down. Everybody's been saying them. These are really great points. I would say it maybe that kind of takes some of what's been said and say it a little differently. The way we talk about it is bringing your full self to work, and what I mean by that is this idea that you're gonna work harder or more creatively or give more of your time and thought to a job later when you get that better title or you get that other thing that you really wanted, but you got the job today that you kind of didn't want, but you kind of got it. Whatever you're doing, you got to be all in. It matters. It matters deeply. And we talk about it as showing up, with your full self, and regardless, show up, give it your all, because how you do something is how you do everything. So I think it's well said by everybody else. I think we look for analytic talent. We look for self-starters who can creatively think their way around a problem. And if you're not really feeling it, we can tell, and you're not going to make it long term.
Jason?
So I'll add, people that are proactive as opposed to reactive. Far too often we find, folks are reactive. They're waiting for, that task to come to them or the next initiative or the next idea. I'm looking for somebody who's proactive with ideas. They're hungry. They want to grab the bull by the horns and just run with it. Don't wait for somebody to come to you and tell you what to do. Once you get into an environment, in a corporate environment, you meet the people and you understand your roles and your responsibilities, look for opportunities to go outside and expand your roles, your responsibilities, the number of hats that you wear. Because oftentimes, if you're working for a smaller company, you have a little bit more autonomy and maybe some opportunities to provide some input. And I don't think that, companies are looking to grow and expand and succeed in this market. They haven't done so by tapering down folks with good ideas. So voice those opinions, voice those ideas. So yeah, proactive versus reactive.
All right. And Mike.
Yeah, and Brian, I'm like you, right? Going last. I wrote down a couple and then I just had to cross them off. And ultimately I stopped. So I'm gonna take another approach. Think about what people didn't say. Nobody said book smart. Right. And I obviously we're on the call here for George Mason, and I'm not like saying that, your studies are not important. That's not what I'm saying. There is a minimum level that everybody needs to have, that competence and ability. But nobody said that. Nobody focused on a Harvard grad with a 4.0 GPA. It's, in the real world, all those soft skills that everybody talked about are so critical. And it's the interpersonal skills, it's the passion, it's the organization, being proactive. I mean, that is really the point to take away. I mean, I could reiterate every single comment they had, but nobody said those traits that they're looking for are that 4.0 GPA. And so I think that's something to take away. I don't want to downplay it, right? It might get your foot in the door. Studies are critical. Everybody here is, and so I know we're on a call with, again, George Mason. It's critical to have that foundation, but the success, the really to elevate you in the long part of your career as you get part of the team. John's example, a biology major, right? Not classically trained, but has these other soft skills. And so I think that's so critical. And as a result, take from that, right? If those are your strengths, make sure you highlight that in your conversations, in your interviews, in everything that you do, is really what I would highlight there. Because again, everybody took all the really good answers. So I just wanted to call that out.
Thank you. Maybe we'll field a student question at this point. So it's very related to what we just talked about in terms of the one or two things that you look for in people that you work with and hire. But maybe specific, maybe we can phrase this question specific to, say, an interview or how to get their foot in the door. What are some of the things that students can do to set themselves apart as a candidate for an entry-level position, say during an interview or your resume? So in specific. So maybe I'll call out some specific persons. Why don't we start with John? Can you take a stab at answering that one?
Well, this weekend I had 4 friends and acquaintances call me or email me and say, hey, do you mind if I recommend my neighbor for an internship with Scott Long Construction? Or, hey, one of my coworkers' son is looking for an internship. And so I would just say briefly, leverage your resources of who you know and ask for help. Ask for help, ask your neighbors, ask your family, ask your community of, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Do you know anyone that might be willing to help me? We love to help. And so I connected each one of those folks. And if they don't get an internship with us, I'll go asking my friends for helping them. So that would be what I would do is ask the adult friends around you for help.
All right. How about you, David? What can students do to get their foot in the door or make a good impression during their interview or resume?
I think my example kind of in the beginning is probably the best one. The beauty of real estate is it's tangible. It's in our neighborhood. We can all go drive to it, walk to it. So take that opportunity and do it. Going on someone's website and reading about a project and regurgitating a website is worse than not doing that at all. But taking the proactive approach of looking at one of John's construction projects and going and touring it and noticing who some of the subcontractors are. And when you sit down with John, you're like, wow, what made you, choose them? And, I know these people, and how do you differentiate yourself from this? And wow, that's an interesting, you relocated this road. Something that simple means a lot. The projects Trammell Crow has are around the region, and, taking that time to show that you're interested, I think is something that to me is just the baseline to get in the door. And, from there, I think it's just being excited about it, being honest with yourself about what you know and you don't know, but trying to show that you're truly interested about it is one of the most simple and basic things that I'll bet you only 1 out of every 5 people get right.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Colleen? What can students do to make themselves stand out?
Sure. So a few things that come to mind, other than passion, which everyone has talked about, but taking advantage of the career services that George Mason has, and I'm not sure career services is the exact term, but a lot of career services have a link of what jobs are out there so you can show what interest. There's also mock interviews that you could probably go through. There's a lot of times where people aren't comfortable with interviewing. And so getting as much practice as you can through the mock interviews, I think is very helpful. The other thing I'd recommend is I'm in the accounting industry, and an internship is very important. And I'm assuming that is for, the real estate industry as a whole. But really understand that you have to get your foot in the door early. And we are looking for internships. And it is the best way to figure out, too, what company works best for you. I mean, remember, this is a two-way street that, the company has to like you, but also make sure the company fits with what you're looking for. And so I think going through that process is also very important.
And then Brian, you have any thoughts on how a student might stand out in one of your interviews?
Well, I'll say this. I interviewed someone last week. It was a 30-minute interview, 15 minutes to answer the first question. Just don't do long answers if you can avoid it. I would just say that you stand out in the wrong way when you do that. You don't really get a chance to have a dialogue. And, there's to John's point, though, you got to lever your network. I mean, It's one of the things we actually deal with a lot of our residents is that you know, the tragedy is many people who start out in a poor zip code end up as adults in a poor zip code. And part of what we're learning is one of the main reasons for that is access to a network that gives you access to more opportunities in life. And we're trying to do a lot more deliberate work to build those networks, those social networks. Your social capital is what we call it. But look, I mean, the fact that you're part of this community, you're on this screen in some way, says you're already part of an established network. You got to use that, because that really, for, you know, for better or for worse, is part of how we move forward in life.
All right, thank you. And I noticed that Caleb just put the link to career services, so definitely take advantage of that. Going back to building some of those characteristics that you guys look for, next question I have is, what kind of extracurricular activities, so activities beyond the classroom, can you suggest students take advantage of or do in order to prepare themselves to have some of these characteristics that you prize in your hires? So maybe we can start with a Paige on that one. Looking back to your college and graduate years, what would you recommend to our students in terms of stuff they can do in addition to studying?
Yeah, I would seek out organizations within the industry. I know the Urban Land Institute is a good one. I'm not 100% sure if it's for current students or if it's for like recent graduates, but it's definitely worth looking into. They do a lot of virtual events with COVID. So that's a great way to get familiar with the industry, get familiar with people in the industry so that you can build your network. So yeah, I would definitely seek out opportunities like that just to get that exposure, and it looks great on your resume as well.
Omar?
Yeah, so I was involved with a lot of different organizations in school, and from my own personal experience, I feel like the social extracurriculars were not very useful when it comes to transferable skills, and also the way it looks on a resume. I think that the type of extracurriculars that were very useful and are very useful are those that produce tangible outputs, tangible projects that you can refer to, and just shows that you are a leader, for instance, and also extracurriculars where you think you can make an impact and help them grow. That's a huge plus, because that would show that you entered an organization, whatever it may be, and you help them grow further. So definitely something that has a tangible product or a tangible output that is produced, such as a campus-wide initiative, campus-wide project, a competition, or even an actual project. Just like there's a student-managed investment fund at Mason, for instance, that I was involved in personally. That is an example of that. So yeah, that's all I can think of on top of my head right now, honestly.
Okay, Jason?
Yeah, I'd say dig in and understand the market and the industry that you're passionate about. A lot of the entry-level candidates that come to work, you know, the thing that they lack is that market experience, that industry experience. So if you love the home building industry and you want to go work for Van Meter and you're 2 to 3 years out, there's nothing stopping you from learning more about Van Meter Homes right now. How many units did they build last year? Who's part of the executive management team? Where did they come from? Who's their competition? And what markets are they in? What's their price point? And then all of a sudden, you'll just start to get ingrained in the local residential housing market. If community banking is what you're passionate about, well, then you can dive in and start to understand that. Market knowledge and industry knowledge is something that, you know, the data is out there. You can dig in and find resources. And I would encourage everyone to start today.
Mike?
Yeah, to piggyback back off that, Jason, I mean, everybody lives in a home, right? So check step one in that scenario, everybody is involved with real estate in some way. I say either a home or apartment or a dorm or something. And so, yeah, I mean, having that knowledge is beneficial. In terms of the extracurricular activities, I mean, as long as it's something, in my opinion, right? I mean, obviously, you know, there's you want to show the ability, as Colleen mentioned, to multitask. I think that's important. You know, I'd say also that having one thing that you're more passionate about is better than like having 5 or 6 things that you just kind of like touch the surface on just to have it on the list. And, you know, I think, sorry, I don't know if it was Paige or Omar, but I think Omar said that, you know, to be able to speak to your experience. So doing something in depth enough to be able to speak and what you learned and from that experience, I think is definitely critical. You know, from my perspective, it was sports. You know, I played sports in college, and so ultimately to be able to leverage that experience from a leadership perspective, from a time management perspective, and to be able to speak to that when it came to an interview process, it was definitely beneficial. And so whatever it is for you, and it doesn't have to be an official title on something. If you have something else personally that you're doing, if you're doing a second job or a job while you're in school or whatever it is, I think being able to highlight what path you've chosen and what you've used to fill up your time, and like elaborate how that makes you different and what you've learned and why that makes you an asset. I think those are definitely things to highlight on.
Good points. I guess it's also important to set expectations for our students in the audience about, you know, what it is to come out of college and expect an entry-level job in one of your organizations. So I guess the question is, you know, what kind of entry-level jobs would you describe are in your organizations? What do they typically do? And what are the career paths once they start at that level? What are the career paths, and how do people sort of develop their career paths as time goes on? So maybe we'll start with Brian on that one.
Well, I mean, we do have from analyst to associate and on up. So we actually have laddering. We actually found in our organization that the way we were going to keep good talent was to create more hierarchy. You know, so it ended up going from a relatively flat organization to maybe one that has, frankly, in my view, perhaps too many tiers. But it gives folks a sense of progression and movement, and I think it keeps them feeling like they're moving forward career-wise and learning-wise. So I would say, you know, in terms of opportunities we have at our company, we're hiring. I think we just still looking for another construction manager. We get development associates who are good with performas and running initial modeling to figure out whether it's a good piece of dirt or a bad piece of dirt. We've got a lot of accountants and bookkeepers. The property management field itself is one. I'll just, you know, I know Van Meter's here and can speak more about that, but that's a great way to get into real estate, learn stuff from the bottom up. I think the more you understand it at a basic property level, the more you understand how an individual property works, and the dynamics of what goes on every day inside a property, the more you have a great foundation, in my view, for really understanding other higher careers in real estate.
Yeah. Maybe Mike, you can follow up on that. What can people expect as an entry-level position, and how can they grow in that position?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be remiss to not mention, we're actually hiring right now entry-level positions in accounting, and we also have that property management, like you mentioned, Brian, and we have Zoe Walker and Kelly Pensek on the call as well. So great opportunity to come to these calls and meet that network and reach out and apply. But yeah, we have something very similar, right? We have entry-level positions at our accounts payable level, at the staff accountant level, but then also in the field, right? We have punch out for home building. We have the property management on the more on the investment property side, and we are the whole suite, so we can do it. And really, you know, in my experience, right, you learn by doing. And you know, our organization is actually an organization founded by accountants. Our top 6 or 7 people within the organization, CEO, COO, CFO, are all accountants by trade. And so that's more of a shameless plug on my side of like where you can take accounting and learn anything. It's definitely an important thing. And really what that shows is you can also take any path. So you get into an organization at the bottom level or entry level, and you can make it your own. Our organization does have a hierarchy, but really we try to just get the best people and find a position for those individuals. And if someone's passionate, speaking on my team in particular, if someone's passionate a little bit, you know, more into the operations side, they're going to be our operational accountant. If they're they really like the books and records and they like dealing with the audit side, like they're going to be the financial accountant. And, you know, really having those career conversations with people on your team and ask those questions if with our company you're working for, to understand what that hierarchy is, to see like what your path can be, because that'll allow people to have make the decision for themselves. Is this a place for me? Can I see myself growing? But yeah, really to sum up, you know, we do have entry-level positions open today. And again, that path can really take you anywhere. Our group president of New Homes, Brian Davidson, he started as a staff accountant, the lowest level staff accountant within the organization. So it's pretty cool how, you know, careers can evolve from an entry-level position.
Staying on the theme of accounting, Colleen, maybe you can chime in on.
I knew you were coming to me, Eric, because Mike and I have so much in common with this accounting world. So I felt it. I felt you coming to me. So anyways, I agree with everything Mike said. What I would say is I've already went through, normally an internship is going to get you a full-time position. And if you can get into an internship, you're pretty much guaranteed a full-time position. And so it helps eases the stress of it all. But when you are in that entry-level position, as far as we don't expect too much. We expect you to know the basics. What I expect from you is that you're willing to learn. And when I do teach you, you start understanding and start applying it to the next job. And so that's kind of what we see for most of our new staff, is the ability to learn and carry it forward. And so as far as progression goes, you know, many people start off as staff and work their way to a partner in the firm, like I did. Some start off as staff and realize they want to go to the private side, and so they move into the industry side. But there's so many opportunities, and Mike is right, accounting does lead into a lot of opportunities. And so no matter what entry level where you start, I think you'll realize how many opportunities are out there for you.
How about John? What are entry-level positions like in your company, and how do people grow?
Yeah, so most people we hire, we give the title project engineer, whether or not they're an engineer or not. That's kind of where you start. The real question in the construction industry is, do you want to be in project management, or do you want to be in field management? And frankly, the field management team, it's a really, there's great opportunities there. The fellas and ladies actually that are running projects in the field, they're becoming harder and harder to find. So there's a great opportunity there. But the first role there is you're on the job site, and they're every day working, doing what they ask you to do. And that doesn't mean you're hammering nails, but that means really helping with risk mitigation, safety, doing a lot of documentation. In the field, you would have, in the office, there's a lot of learning and growing. We understand they don't really teach construction in school, so you're really learning the background, the documentation. And then you move up to assistant project manager, senior project manager, director, and then VP. So in project management, there's a real clear ladder. But I'll tell you, anybody that doesn't want to be stuck in the office, field management is a wonderful job, and there's some really great rewards there as well.
Jason, how about in your organization?
Yeah, within banking in general, you can either kind of go the retail side, which is the brick and mortar, the branch side, or the commercial side, and I'll focus on the commercial side. Typically, the entry level is a credit analyst. You're rolling up your sleeves, you're underwriting loans, you're kind of working with the sales team that's out there bringing in the loans and trying to put a package together and just moving on to the next one. And we have credit analysts that have been analysts, for their entire career, and that's kind of where they want to be. Or the natural progression from there, if you do want to move more into the sales and business development side, is a portfolio manager, which is you're out in a region, you're working with a regional executive or team of loan officers, and you're kind of more so involved in the front end. You're analyzing deals right when they come in, trying to determine back of the envelope, does this make sense? Should we put a term sheet together? And getting it to the stage where it's ready to kick over to that underwriting team for analysis. And then from there, we've got lifelong portfolio managers, or we've got folks that go out and become sales and business development, either on the deposit side or the loan side. So entry level, likely credit analysts. There's internship opportunities, but I would say, you know, if you're passionate about working in a community bank environment, for example, and there are no analyst positions available, then take whatever you can, whatever's available, whatever opportunities exist, and work hard and do what's asked of you and then some. And those opportunities internally, it is much easier to recognize and promote somebody laterally over to a new group than it is to bring in a new employee. So just get your foot in the door and work hard.
All right. David, what does a career path look like for Trammell Crow?
I would say we, when we do hire directly out of undergrad, it's tended to be the analytical type positions. And so that doesn't necessarily mean a finance major or accounting major. It means people, once again, back to my prior comment, of people who are passionate about finance. And that means people who are self-starters, who can put together a model and a pro forma and work a development deal from that side to understand how the numbers work. And that's been typical way how younger people have learned the business before they progress to kind of junior project management and into more project management, because unless you understand how the numbers work, it's very hard to understand how to manage a project. We also tend to get a lot of lateral movements from brokerage community as well. And so I think the brokerage community, be it in commercial leasing or commercial sales, much like property management as well, tends to be a really good place to start right out for young folks to get a couple of years experience and to be mentored by a senior broker. And, you know, to understand how value is created in the development process, the leasing is a huge component, arguably the biggest component of it. And so to understand what drives a tenant to make leasing decisions is a really, really valuable experience. So we tend to see a lot of ex-brokers who will enter into the development business. And it's a really good way, I think, to get great ground level experience.
Yeah, I think for the students out there, you can plainly see that whether you're in the marketing track at Mason or the management track at Mason or the accounting track at Mason or the finance track at Mason, the industry holds a lot of entry-level positions and career paths for you if that's generally what you're interested in. And if you're specifically interested in the real estate path, then definitely there's a lot to learn on top of what you've learned inside the classroom. And I think we have time for maybe one last go around from everybody before we end up at 4 o'clock. I mean, so maybe quickly, I'd like to ask you guys, for our students out there, do you have any advice for students that you wish you knew when you were back in college, looking back? So maybe we start this time with Paige. Any advice for yourself when you were in college that you can share with our students?
Yeah, I think to just be open to different opportunities. The real estate industry includes so many different parts. So I think just being open, and, you know, there are people, it was discussed before, like, you know, someone had a biology degree and they ended up working commercial real estate. You know, it's just, you never know like where you end up. So always just be open, open to learning about new opportunities, and you know, not pigeonholing yourself into one specific career path.
Okay. Omar?
Yeah, yeah, this is a piece of advice I wish I received while I was in school, actually. But just get into as many internships as possible. Get as much exposure as you possibly can in different companies, cultures, different teams and different projects as much as you can. That would help. That will dramatically help in clearing up what you actually want to do in the future, and will also help you make a decision whenever you're finished with school, whenever you're finished with your undergrad, and you're choosing between which employer to take an offer from. This will also help dramatically in making that decision, because you already had exposure and know what to look for. And I know some people's circumstances may not allow them to go and do unpaid internships every semester. However, I would urge you to do whatever is in your power to do that, and whatever it might take, it will be worth it in the long run for sure.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, I would just quickly say, I think the person you are today is going to kind of be the person you are in the future. The habits you're building now are gonna kind of be where they are. So are you the person that double proofs or triple proofs your paper before you turn it in, or do you just do it one time? You know, are you someone who turns in like a minute before it's due, or are you the person who gets it done 2 days? The person you are today, I mean, some of us have these life pivots, but it's probably going to be who you're going to be later. So if you don't like it, now's the time to start changing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike?
Yeah, I think the advice I'd like would appreciate hearing is about the word networking or the phrase networking. I used to think it was kind of a daunting, thing to build your network or go hand your business cards to as many people as possible. And it's not that. It's not that at all. I got my job today because of my quote network, but it was really just a good friend that I met at Ernst & Young. And it's so really the advice would be, just be a nice person, work hard, make friends as you're doing things. And eventually, if you stay in touch with people without, again, going out of the way and, burning both ends, it'll kind of evolve, through your career. 5 years will go by, 10 years will go by, and be like, oh yeah, I worked with him, 5 years ago. Let me give him a call again. And then, you might have a mutual way to help each other. So, that networking word, it's important, right? Everybody talked about it, use your network, but I didn't know what network meant back then. And it really is just, being a good person, working hard, trying to stay in touch when you can. And eventually, if you're a likable person and, you ask questions about people, about their families, it'll just grow without you. I would say I'd never networked a day in my life, but I look back on it and there's a lot of people I can call, I can talk to, just through experience and through time. So that's one thing for me.
Okay, and David?
I like Brian's comment a lot. I think said slightly differently is do what you like and like what you do. Don't listen to what others do. And when I was in undergrad, there were 2 career paths people said to go into and nothing else mattered. And I would scratch and claw to get into those. And when I was in school, it was investment banking or consulting. And no matter what you did, you had to be into one of those. And I chose consulting because that was where the coin flipped, and I didn't like it and I wasn't good at it. And it was just a bad mix. And so I think just be introspective and try to end up where you will like being, because what you like doing is what you will be really good at doing. Then the other thing I would say is I spent so much time in undergraduate trying to memorize facts, memorize information, and that is completely the wrong way to think about business. The right way to think about it is don't remember any of those. I don't remember any of them now. What you want to learn is you want to learn the process to uncover that information in the future, the process to find out the things you don't know and how to ask the right questions in a situation. That's what you want to know. You want to learn the process, not memorizing facts.
Unfortunately, we're at the top of the hour, so I'd like to thank our amazing panel. I think we had some amazing advice for the students today. Thank you again for taking part of your afternoon to join our students at ProfessionalQuest. Carrie, do you have any last words before we wrap up?
This was an amazing panel. I'm like taking notes because it was so good, and I hope the students were too. I can't thank you all enough. The information that you shared is super valuable, and we really appreciate it.
All right. So I guess with that, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon, and we hope to see you at the next Professional Quest. We do this every semester, so hopefully you'll join us, and we'll see you at the next one in fall. Thank you, everybody.